In this video, we're going to look at the gradient tool. Now the gradient tool creates a gradual blend between multiple colours. Now you can choose from preset gradient fills or you can create your own. Now I know a lot of you at this precise moment are thinking, Ken, are you for real? The gradient tool? Surely there are more interesting tools to learn than the gradient tool, like the incredibly lovely levels and curvaceous curves. Surely the gradient tool isn't more important than them. Well, the answer is no. It isn't more important than them, but it is more essential. Without the gradient tool, we'd not really be able to create soft transitions between layers inside of Photoshop, and that's why it's so essential. Now later on in the video, we'll take a look at how it works this in practice and achieves this higher state of essentialness. But first, let's have a look into the detail of the gradient tool. My name is Ken Fisher and this is LiveLink Training. Okay, so first we need to select the gradient tool, and the gradient tool lives in the toolbar, so you can go and click on it just here, or if you click and hold down you can see that it's got a keyboard shortcut of G. And when I release, I've now selected the gradient tool. Now if we look up here at the top, we've got the tool options bar for the gradient tool. And if we just go along them, we'll see that there is, the first one is the tool presets. I don't think we've got any at the moment. Oh, I've got one. Yeah, I've got one set. But basically you can make different presets for the tools for quick access. If we move along to the next, we've got the gradient preview. And this is basically the picker where we can actually pick some of the preset gradients out. And here we've got them, so I can pick any of these gradients by just clicking on them. If I want to go further, then I can actually click on this little preview area here and it will bring up the gradient editor. And here I can pick out some of these presets again, or I can make my own gradient. Okay, I'll just cancel out of that. Next along, we've got the 5 styles, and these are different ways that we can use the gradients, that we can view the gradients. And we've got linear, and we've got a radial, and we've got angle, and reflected, and diamond. Moving along, we've got the blend modes. We've got the lots of different ways, all the standard blend modes, so we can actually blend the gradient in with layers underneath. And then the most non-useful of the blending modes really is opacity, and we can change the opacity. Next along we've got reverse, and if you click in the reverse, if you just watch over here, you'll see that it will actually reverse. There we go, it actually reverses the gradient. And then we've got dither. Well, you can't see much with dither, but what it does, it actually softens the gradient a little bit, and it tends to try and reduce the banding that you might get with some of the gradients. And then transparency, well, it actually does what it says on the tin. It controls the transparency of the gradient. Okay, let's have a little bit of a play around with the gradient tool then. Now don't forget, there is an ebook that I've done which goes into more detail on what we're going to be looking at today. Just check out the more area under the video, and there will be a download link to download it. Okay, let's get busy. Let's first have a look at some preset. So if you click here, this little down arrow, we get the presets, and these are ones that ship with Photoshop, and there's quite a few of them. And if you want, you can actually add more. If we have a quick look at this and we look down here, we've got a few pastels at the bottom, but if we click this little cogwheel here, there are down here some gradients that ship with Photoshop, but they're not in as standard, so you have to load them in. So if I just click on that, it asks me, do I want to replace the current gradients with these metal ones, or do I want to append them? Well, I don't want to replace them, not this time anyway, so I'm going to append them. And you'll see you'll get some nice metal shiny sort of gradients that come along the bottom. Right, so first we need to pick a gradient. Well, let's pick this one. We'll start off with this one, basically a red to greeny looking gradient. And now we need to choose a style. And we've got, first one is a linear style. This one, I'll just show you what it's going to do. If I click and drag. And if you want to make sure you drag perfectly vertically or perfectly horizontally or perfectly at 45 degrees, then you hold the shift key down. I'm just going to drag down a little bit and let go. And you'll see what's happened. It's going from red, so this is the red part at the top, and it's finishing up at green, and this is the green part at the bottom, and then there's a transition in the middle. And that transition depends on where I first click and where I let go. Let me show you what I mean. I'll just Control and Z to get out of that. So if I click and I make a little teeny tiny little movement and then let go, I get a very harsh transition. I go, this is a very soft area there, but it transitions very quickly from red to green. If I click up here somewhere and then drag right down to here and then let go, I get a much softer transition. I've got red up at the top, but then it grades out and eventually turns into solid green. Okay. What about the second one, which is the radial? Well, the radial is the round gradient, and for this one it's pretty cool. We can click and drag out to the corner and we get a radial gradient. We get it transitions from red in the middle out to green in the outside, and that's pretty cool. And sometimes it's useful to have them coming in from the corner, and you can just do something like that, so you can have a little bit of sunshine maybe, or if this was yellow in the corner, transitioning out to something else further down, and that looks cool. Okay, we've then got well, these three are really probably not as popular. We've got an angle gradient, and with this one, if I click and drag down and let go, it basically spins everything from red, it goes through a transition, and then it goes into green. That's probably not such a good one, so I'll make a little bit of a longer transition. We'll go down here, and yeah, it doesn't make much difference, but yeah, you just get a little bit of a fuzzy area at the top, so not particularly interesting, that one. Next along, we've got the reflected gradient. And this basically just does the same above as it does below. So if I click and drag down and let go, we've got basically exactly the same reflection at the top and at the bottom. But we've only got two colours on here, so it's not that much different to the linear. And then finally we've got the diamond. Use this a little bit, it's quite interesting. And if you look and just drag, you get like a diamond shape. We'll make a little one in the middle, and we can do one coming further down. Yeah, something like that. That's quite interesting. Yeah, well, I wonder what that would look like with one of these metal ones. Let's have a little go at this. We'll select the metal one and we'll do a... Oh, actually, well, that's not bad. I'll do quite a bigger one. And a little teeny tiny one. And we'll do one going the full length. Yeah, that's not bad actually. It looks quite cool, that, as a metal gradient. I like that one. Right, then we've got the blend modes where we can blend with multiple layers, but we haven't got any other layers. We've got the opacity. We can change the opacity against anything else we've got underneath it. We can reverse it. We've normally got the dither. We'll leave that. I'll leave that on all the time. And then we've got the transparency, if we've got any transparency actually in the gradient itself, but in this case we haven't. Okay, let's have a look at making our own gradient. I'll just click back on linear as a starting point, and then I'll go into the gradient editor, and here I can pick any of the gradients to start with. Let's say pick a foreground 2. If you hover over, you'll see a little tooltip come up. So this is foreground to background, that's background, foreground to transparent, that's just black and white, and that's red and green. It gives you a little bit of an idea of what the gradient's about. We'll start off with foreground to background, and this is, we've got foreground and background colours here, and I'll click on it. And what we've got is a gradient type, so we've got solid and noise. We'll stick with noise for this. And then a smoothness of 100%. We'll leave that so it gives us a bit of a smooth gradient. And now this is the gradient itself. Now these underneath, these little things here, they're called stops. And the underneath ones are colour stops. So here, if I click in this gradient, you'll see the top turns black. That means we're editing this one now. And then things here start becoming live. And I can now change the colour. So if I click in here, I get the colour picker, and I can change the colour at this side of the gradient. So if I'll click, let's have a red. So I've now got a red colour that's now fading out to basically to nothing at this side. And I'll click OK. And now what I can do is I can click on this stop at this side, and I can have another colour. So let's say instead of white, let's go for a blue colour. And click OK. So now I've got a blue fading right through to a red. And this little diamond thing in the middle, that's basically the center point. So if I click and drag that, I can move towards the red, or I can swing it towards the blue. Okay. Now these at the top, well, these are not color stops, these are transparency stops. So if I click on one of them now, I can define a transparency. So if I drop that down, you can see that the blue is getting more transparent as it fades into the red. Okay, and if I click on this one at this side, I'll get the opposite effect now, that the red will become more transparent and fade into the blue. Okay, what happens if I don't like just a 2-colour one? I'll have a 3-colour one. Well, what I can do there, anytime, anywhere along the bottom here, I can click and I'll put another stop in. And I'll click on that one, and let's say I'll select, let's have a yellowy colour in them. Oh yeah, this is an awful gradient, but it does emphasize the point. So we've now got a red transitioning through to an awful green, a slimy green, transitioning through to blue. And again, we can move the relative positions of these by just dragging along, or I can move the center points. And if I want to, let's say I want to put another point on underneath, I can click and I've now got another one. I don't really want one on there, so if you want to remove a stop, then you can just click and drag it until it disappears. And so now I'll just move this over this way a little bit, and I'll say, well, this is my new gradient that I've created. Okay, so if we look down at the bottom, we'll see the last one that was in our presets area is the metal ones. But now if I want this one to be my pride and joy, I can click new, and it fits it in for me there. So I've now got a brand new gradient called custom. I could have renamed it, and then I can use it. So I'll click on that one, and then I'll click OK. You can see it puts it in the gradient area up here, and then I'll try a linear gradient. So I'll drag down, and that's pretty cool. And I'll try one across ways, I'll try one down that way. That looks pretty good. And I'll just try a radial one. I'll click and drag into the corners, and I'll try one from corner to corner. That looks pretty cool. So there we are, we've actually made our very own personalized gradient, and there it is, all set up as a preset. Okay, let's close this down. We'll click OK just to accept that. Okay, let's have a look at the gradient tool in action. Now, a very powerful and common use of the gradient is in combining exposures. Here we've got two images shot with the same subject, but they've got different exposures. So if we turn that one off, to see that one's quite dark, and this one on the top is quite light. Now the background image is a little underexposed, so we can look at that one, and the top of the image is slightly overexposed. Now in this image, the top of the image looks not bad, looks okay. The bottom of the image looks a bit dark. Okay, let's have a look at this one, and we've got the opposite. The top of the image it's starting to get really blown out, and the bottom of the image, well, it's okay, but really a combination of these two would be pretty good if we could get it. And we can by using a combination of a gradient with a mask. Now the mask icon is down here, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a mask on this top layer. So I'm going to click to add a layer mask. Now this is a white layer mask, it's a reveal all layer mask, so basically we're just revealing all that's on this top layer. So we're not seeing anything change at the moment. But anywhere that I paint black, I will be able to see straight through to the bottom layer. And anywhere that's grey, I'll start to get a little bit of a gradient. So it'll be a gradation through to the top. So we're going to use the gradient tool, and we'll not use that gradient. We'll use we can use the foreground to background, because there's foreground colours and the background colour is black and white, which is what we need. So we'll choose that gradient, and then what we're going to do is click and drag down the middle here, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, because if you hold the shift key down, it'll constrain the gradient into the position I want, which is vertically. So I'm going to click, hold the shift key down and drag down to somewhere like that, and then let go. Okay, no, that's not going to work. That's the wrong, you didn't tell me, did you? You didn't tell me. Okay, we'll undo that. We'll go edit and undo, and we'll go for the linear gradient. Okay, you must watch closer than that in the future. It'll be in the test. Right, so now we're back to where we should be. I've got a linear gradient, I've got a black and white, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to click and drag down and then let go. And there you can see now that I've now got the best of both worlds. In fact, I probably need a little bit more, so I'll hold the shift key down and drag it a little bit further. And I think that looks a bit better. So you can see in the mask now that I've got black at the top. So I'm now seeing through this black straight to the bottom layer, which is the slightly underexposed layer. And then down at the bottom I've got white. So the white is showing me what's on this layer here. And then the grey area in the middle of the gradient here, that's giving me a nice transition between the two images. So now if I turn this on and off, you'll see that that's the before and that's the after. And that's the before and that's the after. So that's an example of combining exposures that are not quite right with a gradient on a mask to give you an overall exposure that looks quite good, that looks correct. Well, that brings us to a close on our conversation about gradients. Quick recap. The gradient tool creates a gradual blend between multiple colours, and you can choose from presets that come with Photoshop, or you can create your own. You can use gradient fills in conjunction with masks to combine images together in interesting and creative ways. They are really super important and have lots of uses. Okay, I hope you found all this useful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment under the video. Don't forget to check the More area for the link to the free ebook. And please click the subscribe button to help me build up my Photoshop learning community. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.